Okay, fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today on this LinkedIn Live. It's 12:30 here in the UK, and we're gonna be bringing in Craig Bruce in a moment to join us for our LinkedIn Live. Craig has got an illustrious career working with a number of very large, complex organisations, including TUI, John Lewis in the UK, and Carphone and TalkTalk as part of the same organisations before they split. I'm going to welcome Craig in a moment, and yeah, I'll bring Craig in, and we'll get started with this LinkedIn Live. So just give me a second, and we'll try and bring Craig in. Great, Craig, can you hear me?
Hi, I can. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. How's things going today? You're in London today, aren't you?
I am indeed, and I was just thinking those two phrases we've just uttered have got to become the most popular ones through this year. Can you hear me? Can you see me? With people working from home more and more, it's a new greeting.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And obviously, there's many parts of the world still in lockdown and or partial lockdown, and it's nice to be able to see people. And I certainly, and for one, can't wait to get back out properly and have that face-to-face relationship with people. But thank you so much for agreeing to do this this live with us today. I actually looked back yesterday, and I realised that we sort of known each other since 2005, on and off through your journey. But perhaps, if it's okay with you, we'll get started, and we'll just start talking about the main issue of the day, and that's securing a budget in challenging times.
Sure.
So look, my first question is, as we bring people on board here, is, you know, what's your experience of that? I mean, what's your first recommendation to those that are listening to this on how to present that budget to key stakeholders, and perhaps even taking a step back, what are the first hurdles that they may face?
Okay, well, I think we've titled this as budget in tough times, but there's some basic things you've got to get right whenever you're seeking budget, and those become even more true during tough times. I think one of the basic starting points is make sure you've done your homework. You really need to, if you're the one presenting that business case or that pitch for budget, you need to be prepared, and there are a number of ways that you can do that. One of the most basic ones is whatever you are presenting or pitching, make damn sure there's no errors in it. That's the first thing that will switch off a stakeholder when you go to them looking for budgets. If they see a basic arithmetic error, or sometimes even a spelling mistake, it can get them distracted, or they start questioning if such a basic mistake's slipped through, where in the detail is something amiss. So it sounds silly, but you've really got to be on top of your numbers and top of the data there, and make sure that you actually believe it, because any sign of weakness, if you're pitching for budget and you don't believe it, you're never going to get anyone else on side. So some basics, those things are always going to be true. I think you then need to think about who you're pitching to. So do you really know who is the decision maker when you're making that decision? Is it the CFO, or are you looking for a large enough sum that actually it might need to go to the CEO or the board? And equally, who are the potential detractors, or the people that the decision makers will go and consult, particularly during challenging times? They're going to be looking for that extra assurance. They're going to be reaching out. They're going to be talking to others. So again, do your homework. Understand who you're pitching to up front. Talk to as many of those people as you can up front, and don't expect to just go in with a stunning presentation on the day and land it, because at the end of the day, the people are going to need to digest it. So you probably need to be starting work a couple of weeks before you expect to get a decision, to actually talk to all the right people.
And going back to that, and again, I appreciate it depends on the complexity of the organisation, but who generally might be those stakeholders that you might want to engage in before that presentation, for example?
Well, I think, obviously I've been in a number of interim roles recently, so I'm conscious that if you've just come through the door or you've just started a new role, let's say, and you're trying to get budget, you need to think about who your peers are and who's the most senior, most trusted in those. So if you're reporting into a CIO or a director in whatever organisation, you've got to think they're probably going to talk to the person who's done that role before you, or the person who knows it best from inside their trusted circle. So in addition to the person that you need the support of the person immediately above you. You also need to have some support from the people around you, and then you probably want to be thinking about who is the person that your boss is going to talk to. So again, might be the CFO, might be the CEO, but just start thinking about that ahead of the game, and go talk to other people. Don't guess at it, particularly if you're new to our organisation. Go find out who's been successful in pitching in the past. Who did they talk to? What tips did they give? And as part of that, it's not just understanding the person; it's understanding the type of person. I think it's quite important when you're pitching an idea. You've got to realise that there's some people who will buy into the emotional story. So you can walk into a room and say, "Hey guys, it's a great idea. That product that was successful last year made us millions. I've got Mark II of that. It uses the newest technology. It's not going to cost as much to develop. We can have it live in 6 months. It's going to be great. We're going to sell millions." Yep. Some people will engage with that kind of story, whereas someone else will have their head down in the Excel. They'll be looking at the detail, looking at the numbers, the projections, the trends. And you need to cater to both of those people, because some people might be in the middle. They'll want a bit of both. So again, understand your audience and prepare that audience, particularly if it's someone who's going to go into the detail, like most CFOs will. They'll be happy losing themselves in multiple sheets of Excel. Give them a few days to do that. Give them the time to digest it, and appreciate that they're not somebody who's going to make a from the heart or shooting from the hip decision there and then. You've got to give them the time.
Now, where does the business play a part in that? Because clearly, the business is driving the demand generally, and that budget obviously has an impact on that. So where do you build those relationships within the business and have that influence as well?
Well, obviously, you've got to have a good ROI. So who's actually going to benefit from it? Who's your buddy who's going to help? If you're in an IT team like I would have been, or I am normally, who's going to work with you? Do you understand them and what's important to them? Do you understand the current state of the business? Particularly in current times, you really want to know, is the business, or is that particular sector of the business only bringing in 30% of the usual revenues? Again, make sure you factor that into your business case. If your projections are assuming 100% based on last year's numbers, you're probably going to get short shrift off the CFO. So again, work with your business partner, because they'll know what is currently working, what is not working for them, and be able to help make those projections. So they might be the product director, or it might be a product owner, depending on what sector you're in. It might equally be someone who is not necessarily on the front line, but is looking at making a difference to the bottom line. So someone who's looking to make operational cost savings, or make the operation smoother. Again, times like this, if you're trying to run a call center remotely, you're probably needing some help with that. And you may also be talking to that, if you're working in IT, again, you might be talking to that business owner who's running the contact center about, hey, is there an opportunity here to talk about long-term benefit? So not just short-term while we're locked down working from home, but actually, could we add something to the business if we brought in some new technology, some remote working capability? And yeah, look to get that real engagement with those sort of people that way.
What are the mistakes you've seen in the past that where people have perhaps not got that engagement or getting that budget signed off? What are generally the common traits that you've seen?
I think it's quite often, particularly in IT teams, to think that the IT business analysts or whoever done the digging, that they are the experts and they know what's good for the business. And you'll quite often find that people at sort of mid-level management within within functions who are reporting up to the stakeholders in the business. They have a far better handle on technology than is sometimes imagined. So you might be going in to pitch with an idea of the latest and greatest technology that your architects, your business analysts have all said that's the thing to go for. And you'll find that when the business leader goes and talks to their team may well already be aware of that product, have dismissed it for some reason, and the business leader is going to trust their frontline guys a lot more than they're going to trust the outsider from an IT team. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, doing your research, actually getting in with the team that are going to use the technology or benefit from it remotely, not just the senior decision makers, but the people at the grassroots level. They may well have tried similar approaches before, but whether or not that changes your technology decision, they're going to be influential. So you've got to talk to them. So that's one big mistake. And again, also I think related to that, it's pitching at an appropriate level of investment. You need to work with that business leader to understand. I would suggest, particularly in current times, can you get incremental benefits? So can you prove that something is appropriate within a short period of time, and then build on that? I've seen business cases that I've aimed for the stars day one, and you're never going to get all the money, particularly when things are tough. So can you work with that business leader to agree on an appropriate incremental benefit that doesn't necessarily give all the bells and whistles day one, but gives you a minimal viable product day one and builds upon it?
How does timing play into it generally, and what's the sort of cutoff generally where there's perhaps a missed opportunity? So you might have presented something, and the budget it's not agreed. What's the best way and the time process that people can come back? Generally speaking, do you see?
Again, I think to some extent it goes back to my initial point about know your audience. So you've really got to put yourself in the CFO's shoes or the budget holder's shoes. You need to understand their timescales, and it's all going to be different in different organisations. But you need to understand sort of is for example the CFO and his entire team focused on year end or month end, because if they are, you're not going to get much time or much support from them to either review a proposal or help you build it. You're probably going to have to start working, as I said, with their team at least 2 weeks in advance to understand what the opportunities are. You're probably going to need to understand milestones such as when the next board meeting is. Again, when are the stakeholders going to be coming together? And what is the normal governance cycle for reviewing proposals? And as part of that, find out is there a standard process or approach. Particularly in current times, a lot of organisations have put into place additional governance or classification. So I've seen before where you'll have different schedules and different requirements for different tiers of investment. Mm-hmm. So you might have sort of top tier, clear ROI, high return, high margin, high degree of confidence. That's the sort of thing that CFOs are going to be far more likely to support at this point in time with all the paperwork. And those are the things that boards will be prioritising looking at. But then you're going to get tiers below that of sort of moderate return, medium confidence, or even some that are projects, particularly if you're in an IT or support organisation, potential projects or business cases that have no return. They might be addressing risk. It might be cybersecurity. No clear immediate financial return, but obviously clear benefits there. So those are going to be reviewed in a different way, and they will probably pull in a completely different set of stakeholders who, again, might be working to a different schedule. You'll find the risk committee probably isn't working to the same schedule as your board meeting schedule. So again, do your homework. If you can't get the time with the CFO to find it out, is PA's your best friend. They'll know the answer to those questions.
Now, you mentioned about that rock solid business plan, and I'm just curious about that presentation phase, because again, maybe now people are remote. It's harder to have a sit down and that face to face. Maybe you're presenting. At what stage are you sharing that document, or do you want to walk them through it from the start? So actually, if they've got any questions there, you can manage those risks as you go. What's your experience?
So again, you've got to prep those people in advance. There's going to be the people who want the data, and there's going to be certain pitches that need a lot of data. That's what you want to be sharing in advance with some context. So if there's a multi-sheet Excel that's going to be going through, for example, you want to be talking through that with someone, one of the stakeholders in advance, getting their input, getting feedback, making sure it's accurate. That you want to give as much time as possible. Then I would suggest your actual pitch itself. So when you're getting onto PowerPoint or Google equivalents or whatever, you need to start looking at getting that presentation, the full form of it, shared the week before. You want to take that through with, again, opposite sides of the scale, your supporters and detractors, to sort of get them familiarized with it, so that when you do actually come to present your slimmed down presentation, they're not sitting trying to figure out what's the scale on that graph, what's the key message. You should have them familiarized so that it's more a case of confirming support rather than getting support in that presentation. So I would suggest that you want to be on a Zoom call, whatever. It might only take 15 minutes just to sort of talk through that deck the week before, get feedback, make sure you incorporate that feedback, because again, they'll look for that. They want to sort of give a slight nod, or yeah, they took my feedback on board from that presentation. So make sure that's all built in. And then your actual presentation itself, when you come down to the deck, it might be fairly minimal. One of my biggest personal successes was a slide deck of, I think, 3 slides, which secured me 3 million of budget from a particularly tricky CFO who was known for saying no, was always wanting to get into the detail. And it was a fairly short sit-down meeting, with, I say, 3 slides, but I'd done all the prep before. So at that point of sitting down and going through the 3 slides, it was more about relationship and trust than the slides themselves. Again, that's where it comes down to the prep. If you have good rapport with the decision makers, if you have a prior relationship, if you're trusted, and you might have built that up only over 2-3 weeks, that's what's going to get you to a more amicable discussion and agreement at the end of the day.
That's great advice there. I mean, it's almost the final rubber stamp, because you've done your homework and you've done the preparation prior to that, I guess. Yeah,
and again, depending upon the scale of the decision and the buy-in that's required, the earlier you start that, the better. And I said before, with current times, everything that was true in the past, multiply that by a factor of 2 or 3, because the more preparation you do, you will need to do more and more of it in current times, because at the end of the day, your biggest decision maker, a CFO, their key job is to manage risk, to mitigate risk, and keep the company safe and secure. At present, one of the ways they're doing that is minimizing spending. They don't know how long they're going to have to keep the cash reserves ticking over for. Obviously, vaccine, great news. Hopefully that enables them to plan better. But they're going to minimize risk. So anything that you put in front of them, they're going to be looking through it with a lens of, is this increasing risk? Is this an opportunity that's low risk? They'll always have that risk lens there. And the more time you give them to go over a proposal, to sift through it, looking for any elements of concern or risk, the better. They'll be looking for reasons for your proposal to fail. You've got to switch them on to looking to the support elements, but it will take them a while to get through those steps to sort of make sure there's no reasons to fail.
Now, I guess some people have had experience of presenting those, and then the things go quiet. They don't hear anything back. So I'm curious how you've seen people successfully manage that expectation and keep the button pushing forward, either until they get an answer, or an outcome, whether it's good or bad. What's your experience with that?
I guess the question is, do you understand the reason for the delay? So, is there a governance cycle that you need to be aware of that's ticking along? So, is there a board meeting coming up? Is there a cycle that needs to be discussed, or is it simply that they're still mulling it over? Was the case you made not compelling enough? I think that's the stage at which you potentially need to be going back, not simply to say, is there any more information I can give you, or when can you give me an answer, but potentially be going with enhancements or additions or options. I think it's been quite successful. If you've had further, you might not have had a chance to fully prepare before pitching. If you've had more time to think, talk to the team, and you're going back with options or variations, particularly on phasing or timing or level of investment, those little enhancements can get you more of an open door, rather than simply pestering the decision maker to say, have you made up your mind yet? If you're going along saying, oh, actually, I've had a further thought, you might want to throw this into the mix, they're going to look on that conversation more favourably, and what they're hearing is that you're being a team player and looking for options, but actually you've opened the door to discussion through which you can say, is that making you any happier? And you're getting feedback directly or indirectly through having that additional conversation.
Now, where does the opportunities come into play, or the challenges for the budget holder, where perhaps there's other outside influences going on within those decisions? So it could be that, in fact, that actually it's scrapped and outsourced, or outsourcing is a better option. I mean, again, what's the kind of thinking on a C level around what are the best options? Because it may be a better return on investment or better value by offshoring, for example, or keeping it in house.
Well, yeah. Again, trying to have some empathy with the decision maker, trying to understand what their concerns are. You can do that through talking to other people. You might find that you're going into the room and that person is looking to cut heads, and they're looking to outsource, and they don't want to sign up to anything that involves budget that's going to build additional teams or require additional people in-house. That's going to be a pretty tough discussion. You're going to need to show that you understand where they're coming from, you understand why they prefer to give it to an outsourced partner, and frankly, you might not win that discussion. You might have to adapt your proposal, or at least come in with an option which shows that it's such a strong pitch to do it in-house, for example, rather than outsourced, with immediate gains. So again, the sooner you can give both you and the decision maker an opportunity to prove that it's the right path in that delivery process, the sooner you can do that, the better. You'll get their buy-in. But some people are frankly going to simply have made the decision already. I know I've been that person. I've been coming in with a mandate to minimise in-house heads, and therefore the ongoing cost associated with permanent staff, and be looking to put things out to third parties and manage the risk that way. And again, anyone who'd been coming to me looking for support that built a team in-house was really going to have to work pretty hard. I've had circumstances where people have changed my view. A guy in a prior role who was actually working in the Nordic region. He was very passionate, as they quite often are in Nordics, about having in-house staff. They're not so keen on outsourcing. He came back and time and again with different options, different cuts of the data as to why things would work better. So he heard my concern about cost savings and ongoing cost commitments. He found ways to deliver the benefit with fewer people. He looked at the actual performance of the outsourced third parties and said, yeah, fair enough, if you had a great third party, you might be able to achieve those outcomes, but here's what that third party's actually giving you. So again, I think making sure you understand the concerns of the stakeholder, and then finding ways to challenge their beliefs, but be sure that it's probably not going to be an easy battle, but it can be won.
Yeah, for sure. Now, look, you mentioned earlier a little bit of optimism and positivity, with the vaccine news, and it's looking in the right direction. By the end of Q1, we'll be having some form of normality, hopefully, getting people out and about again. I'm feeling quite optimistic in the market, but I think what is interesting this year is there's been a lot of headcount that's been lost in organizations. Projects may have been delayed, but the smart businesses now will be thinking about how they can be competitive and move their business forward. And at the moment, a lot of people are, doubling down, doing 3 jobs almost. A lot of pressure on them with existing resource. What's your thoughts for 2021, and what's your view from a C-level that organizations are probably thinking about now to really make their business, a high-performing business into 2021?
Well, obviously, even with the vaccine coming on, there's still some uncertainty. Brexit, and to the extent to which we have a deal or no deal, another uncertainty for there. And as you say, a lot of businesses, particularly retail businesses and hospitality businesses, tourism, have suffered this year. So they're going to be licking their wounds somewhat. And I think as part of that, a lot of businesses are going to have to think about, do they fundamentally need to about-face and change their operating model? So if you're a retail business and you've not had an online presence up till now, you've probably changed your mind in the last 6 months. You're going to be looking at having an online business, and then all the fulfillment channels that requires and comes with customer care. You're going to be thinking about building that up. You're also going to be looking, regardless of what sector you're in, at the changing working patterns. You're going to be asking yourself about, do you understand the productivity of remote staff? Has that worked for your business? Do you feel comfortable that that's a thing you want to continue? If so, are you investing in that? How can you support that? How can you support a culture of remote working? I think associated with that, quite bluntly, a lot of organisations will be looking at occupancy levels in their buildings and other property-based cost savings that they might bring in associated with a change of way of working. I think we're going to find that a lot of people have quite enjoyed the opportunity that working from home has given them. Not everyone's going to want to do that all day, every day, but the opportunity to spend more time with families, get to know your kids for once, keep your significant other happy. That's going to be something that people are going to be seeing as high value. And if you're looking for a new job next year and they say, no, you're going to have to come in and work in an office and actually be in the basement and there's no windows, you're probably not going to be accepting that job. So employers are going to have to think about how can they help support some of the work-life balance that people have been able to achieve through lockdown. I mean, how many of us have taken on a new exercise regime, or at least aspired to it and decided that, yeah, come January, I'm really going to start at it. All those little things that are giving people a greater quality of life in some ways than they might have had sitting in an office. I think a lot of businesses are going to have to focus on that to keep the people they've had who've maybe done 3 jobs over the last few months, keep them happy, motivated, keep them with the company. So I think there's 2 sides to that. There's obviously, as I said before, the organisations are going to have to do real transformational work to recognise the fresh challenges that, whether it be Brexit bring about, whether it be just the change in shopping habits, you've got to consider that, as well as working patterns and keeping your team motivated and equipped to work remotely.
Yeah, I think that's some great points there, and I think there's a lot for organisations to deal with. It's interesting you talk about that point of productivity and then working from home. I mean, of the thousands of candidates I've spoken to this year, many of them working in incredibly long and tough hours, and in fact, many more efficient than not wasting that time to travel to work for those 1 or 2 hours sometimes, and able to actually give back to that organisation. So I think that these are great questions a bit further away from just the budget discussion, and those are going to be interesting challenges for 2021. Look, Greg. Thank you so much for sharing it with us and just giving some tips. I mean, there's some great advice there for anyone who is looking to secure a budget, and perhaps equally, as you said, people who are going into new organisations, which there are at the moment. It can be even more difficult when they're remote and not close to the business. But some of your recommendations about building those relationships with key stakeholders, I think, is gold, and really about doing that prior to any kind of presentation and understanding the nuances of that organisation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any role, with any business, at the end of the day, a business is run by people. If you've not built rapport and you're just filling in forms, you're going to get nowhere. You've got to know the people you're working with, and particularly when you're working remotely, you're not going to bump into them in the coffee area. You're going to have to put in that little bit more effort, scheduling time. Might even be 5-10 minutes on a quick video conference, but those times are golden. It's the conversation you have where you sort of say to someone, "Oh, I can see an advent calendar on the background. Have you made that yourself, or where did you get it?" Those conversations that help to build a rapport and clarify that you're a human being at the end of the day. Those will build up slowly over time and help you get through the actual process of getting budget or getting anything done.
Fantastic. Well, look, Craig, thanks so much for joining us on the LinkedIn Live today. I wish you all the best for the next year ahead. I'm sure many people are looking forward to a Christmas break as well and having a bit of a wind down. And I'll talk to you hopefully in the next few weeks. And if you want to reach out and connect with Craig, look him up on LinkedIn, Craig Bruce. You'll find him, and I'm sure he'd welcome a connection if you make it a bit personal. We'll be having more LinkedIn Lives, and if you've enjoyed this, just drop me a message privately. We can be in touch, and we'll hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks, David. Good to talk today.
You're welcome.